A very good evening to Sister Agnes, our Loreto sisters, panelists, teachers, parents, friends, and most importantly, my dear students. A very famous doctor once rightly said that the three most important tips to a good life is sleep, emotional health, and self discipline. Sleep is important as it repairs our body and replenishes energy. Self discipline gives us a focus and a definite routine in our lives. Emotional health is a powerful tool. Everything begins and stays in your mind. The human mind finds a way to justify almost everything in our lives. Last year, I was struck by a special assembly put up by our students entitled, It's Okay Not to Be Okay. It left a striking image in my mind as I once more realized and was reminded that the children of today have many more issues to deal with than when we were in school. Flaws, failures, and insecurities sometimes leads to low self-esteem and even lower levels of self-confidence. This in turn may lead to self-criticism. You may make mistakes. You may face failure. Don't condemn yourself. Find the courage to emerge stronger, to be more confident, and to face the challenges in the world. Most importantly, treat yourself with respect despite the flaws and inabilities you might face. It is okay to get help. That's why we are here. My Mind Matters is a well thought of webinar carefully planned by us at Loreto House to help you find an answer, to help you find a solution, to help you find yourself. Please remember, this is an awareness program. Some of you may have issues, most of you may not. Our distinguished panelists this evening will take you through a journey. I warmly welcome you to listen, to ask questions during the question and answer session, and to take a step to rediscover yourself. May I now request Mrs. Dheer to introduce our esteemed guests for this evening. Ma'am.
Thank you, Mrs. Holmes. We have the privilege of having in our midst three eminent resource persons for this evening's session. Dr. Dinaz Dijiboy, Ms. Barnali Ghosh, and Ms. Sasha Paul. Dr. Dinaz Dijiboy is an assistant professor and currently the head of the Department of Psychology, Loreto College. She was awarded the National Scholarship for Achievement at the BSc level by the University of Calcutta to pursue MSc in Psychology, batch 2003-2005. She was a gold medalist in her BSc and MSc. She was awarded the S.C. Gupta Best Paper Award in 2015 by the Indian Association of Clinical Psychology for her work in borderline personality disorder. She is also a consultant clinical psychologist practicing for over 14 years. She is currently interested in narrative ideas and practices and their application in clinical settings. We warmly welcome you, Dr. Gigi Boy, to this evening's session. Ms. Barnali Ghosh. Ms. Ghosh is a mental health specialist With 24 years of experience in providing preventive and curative counseling, mentoring, psychotherapy on an individual basis and in groups. She's one of the few trainers and practitioners in India to use Sino box and play therapy, an analytical diagnostic and treatment tool. She is one of the pioneers in India in identifying the prevalence of sexual abuse of children at railway stations, in assessing counseling programs in shelter homes, and in the evaluation of dance movement therapy used in helping trafficked girls facing court prosecution. She has designed and conducted training workshops for caregivers and social workers working with underprivileged and street children. She has been a faculty member of Jadavpur University's counseling course. She has served as a psychotherapist and mental health consultant for several NGOs. She is presently the University Counselor Mentor in NUJS, Kolkata. She is also the consultant psychologist in Columbia Asia Hospital, Salt Lake City, touching lives by offering guidance and therapy. Welcome, Mrs. Varnali Ghosh, and thank you for your time this evening. Miss Sasha Paul. Sasha is a former student of Loreto House. She completed her schooling in 2012. She did her BA in Literature and Political Science from St. Xavier's, Bombay, and then went on to study law. She has been a practicing lawyer in Delhi for almost 2 years. Sasha underwent a severe mental crisis a few years ago and emerged from it much stronger and confident to take on the challenges that life presents. It is always a pleasure to welcome our pupils to their second home, their school. We are delighted to have you with us this evening, Sasha. I'd like to extend a warm welcome from Loreto House to Dr. Dinaz Jijiboy, Ms. Varnali Ghosh, and Ms. Paul, or Sasha Paul, to our webinar, My Mind Matters. I'd like to give a gentle reminder to our students to post their questions on Google Form or on the link provided on YouTube. Please be reassured that anonymity will be maintained. I now invite our key speaker for this evening, Dr. Dinaz Jijiboy, to address the gathering.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank the organizers for this very pertinent deliberation, My Mind Matters. I take this opportunity to thank Loreto House for having me here. I would just like to share a presentation. I would like to start by emphasizing on this quote: happiness is a journey, not a destination. And in this journey, there are going to be good times, bad times, highs, lows, ups, downs, and the like. This is what life is all about. And what I want to stress upon from the very beginning is that presence of stress reactions is not, I repeat, not a sign of weakness, but of being human. Far more than any other type of illness, mental conditions are subject to negative judgments and stigmatization. Many people's problems are made worse by the stigma and discrimination they experience, not only from society, but also from families, friends, and employers. Most people who experience mental health problems recover fully or are able to live with and manage them, especially if they get help early on. One of the most important points about finding solutions is understanding the problem. We need to understand that coping does not only involve the individual, but the environment around is also very important. Changes in our behavior influence how we think and also how we feel, both physically and emotionally. It can also change our environment. Similarly, changes in our thinking can affect our behavior, our mood, our physical reactions, and lead to changes in our social environment. Now, understanding how thoughts, mood, behavior, physical reactions, and environment interact can help us understand our problems. Reflection and spending time with ourselves will also help us with this. Let me use an example to explain this. An environmental change or life situation may be an upcoming examination. Now, when we are thinking about the situation, we may have physical reactions like breaking into a cold sweat, pounding heart, having difficulty in breathing, having trouble sleeping. Our mood may be affected, and we may experience fear, panic, or nervousness. We may indulge in behaviors like avoiding people, avoiding situations, and it may be difficult for us to work. We may isolate ourselves from other people, and we may have crying spells. Thoughts like, I am going out of my mind. What if I lose control? I am no good. I am worthless. I am a failure. My life is hopeless may plague our minds. We need to understand that no matter what changes contribute to our problems, once we are experiencing any strong mood, be it anxiety, sadness, anger, all five aspects of our experiences are involved. Now, while small changes in all five areas may be necessary to feel better, it has been seen that changes in our thinking are most often important if we want to create a lasting positive improvement in our life. Identifying these five components of our own distress can help target areas for change. In situations such as these, physiologically, we see that our emotional brain is pitted against our thinking brain. When we are faced with an emotion laden situation, there are two circuits in the brain that activate themselves. The quicker one comes from the emotional center, and the slow one travels to the thinking brain. Our emotional brain works 5 times faster than our logical brain and is irrational, emotional, and illogical. Whereas our thinking brain is rational and logical, but works 5 times slower than the emotional brain. So when we are feeling overwhelming emotions, we may act impulsively. Whereas what we need to do at this point of time is stop and allow information to travel to our thinking brain that will help us to see reason and use our decision-making skills effectively. What is the thought-mood connection? In the situation of an upcoming examination, we are experiencing distressing moods such as anxiety and apprehension, which may lead us to the behavior with consequences. For example, not sitting for the examination. Now, it is important for us to identify what we are thinking and to check the accuracy of the thought before acting. For example, how much time do I have before the exam? How much of the topic can I cover? It would be inaccurate to think that if I sit for the examination, I will fail. Once a mood is present, it is accompanied by additional thoughts that support and strengthen the mood. For example, the person who is anxious may see danger everywhere. And the stronger the mood, the more extreme the thinking is likely to be. So thoughts such as, I am a failure, I will fail for sure, comes to mind. At this point, we need to remember something very important. Having these thoughts does not mean that our thinking is wrong when we are experiencing an intense mood. But when we feel these intense moods, we are more likely to distort, discount, or disregard information that contradicts our moods and beliefs. Everyone thinks in these ways sometimes. However, it is helpful to learn to recognize when you are thinking in distorted ways because this understanding provides a first step towards more balanced thinking and mood states. So now one may ask, what is a thought behavior connection? Thinking is not the same as doing, but the more we believe that something is possible, the more likely we attempt and we may succeed at it. We need to make small efforts to bridge the gap between thinking and doing. For example, breaking down the goal of giving the exam into smaller steps, of looking at the topic to be covered, how much time is left, who can help me, can my friends help me, can my teachers help me, how much of the syllabus can I cover, what parts of the chapter are important, can I learn some of the points rather than all of them, and thus proceed from the thinking plane to the doing plane. So what is the thought physical reactions connection? Thoughts also affect our physical reactions. So when I'm imagining that I'm unable to study and there is no time left, it will leave me rather anxious with physical reactions such as trembling, sweating, quick, short breaths. Whereas imagining breaking down the goal and moving towards it would give me a sense of achievement and would, in the process, relieve me. What is the thought environment connection? It does not take a traumatic event to influence beliefs. Beliefs can be influenced by our cultural, ethnic background, gender, neighborhood, family beliefs and practices, religion, and the media. What you think about yourself, your future, and your life experiences is influenced by these parts of your early and current environment. So then we may ask the question, is positive thinking the solution? Now, although we have seen that thoughts influence mood, behavior, and physical reactions, positive thinking is not a solution to life's problems. We need to look at the situation from many different angles, and looking at the situation from these different angles of positive, negative, and neutral can lead to new conclusions and solutions. Is changing the way you feel the only way to feel better? Even though identifying and changing thoughts is important, it is equally important to make physical, behavioral, and environmental changes. Physical changes can be learn how to relax. Behavioral changes can be stop avoiding. And environmental changes can be standing up for yourself, being assertive. Um, Happiness is a state of mind. We can consciously choose despite the atrocities we face in life. Let us believe that we always have a choice. And even if we choose wrong, after all, to err is only human, and realize it, we can choose again. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gigi Boy, for your very insightful and thought provoking presentation, so relevant to the life of the students today. I'm sure small steps will be taken to bring about big changes in their life. Thank you, ma'am. I now invite our second speaker for this evening's webinar, Ms. Barnali Ghosh, to share with us her expertise in her chosen field. Ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. And good evening, all, and thank you for inviting me over on this panel. I've been requested to speak about anxiety and depression, especially during the times of pandemic. We have a short, restricted time limit, so I need to breeze through what I have thought about the topic. So these are exceptional times where the world over is struggling with a pandemic panic, thus making mental health as part of our frontline concerns. Talking about anxiety and depression has become part of people's daily lingo now, with a significant percentage of even the non-clinical population now grappling with it in some form or the other. And while the urban population is increasingly Googling for answers to their emotional difficulties, it becomes imperative to understand that it offers the entire spectrum of every kind of disease, be it physical, be it psychological, from the mild to the most severe. So individuals looking for answers might internally react to such information differently, from feeling assured to feeling more anxious depending on the individual's disposition. So let's try to understand some broad-based aspects of anxiety and depression, some very simple ways to discern the difference between what arises from the body and what from the mind. It may also help you to know that anxiety is a part and parcel of human existence. All of us feel anxious in moderate degrees and in moderate, uh, and in moderate degrees, it is an adaptive response. But while most people feel anxious, some of the time, some feel it most of the time, and for them, it is not an adaptive response. It becomes a source of great distress, relievable only by strategies that limit freedom and flexibility. Now, the basic difference between anxiety and depression is that in anxiety, we sense it. We sense it physiologically first inside our body, whereas in depression, we first feel as it affects our mood. Thus, in any kind of anxiety spells, phase, or attacks, there are heightened physiological arousals like increased heart rate, or as we call it, palpitation, racing pulse, chest pain, breathing difficulties, choking sensations, excessive sweating, dryness of mouth, hot flushes or chills, tingling sensations in hands or feet, clammy hands, trembling or tremors, nausea, dizziness, headaches, muscular aches, indigestion, acid reflux, etc. Whereas in depression, on the other hand, individuals feel more or feel less. Thus, when a person feels sad, dejected, helpless, hopeless, loss of pleasure, loss of energy and interest, these are reduced feelings of what they usually have felt before. And then there are others who suddenly feel much more or elevated than they would otherwise experience. Thus, there are signs of excessive energy, feeling restless, overconfident, overexpansive, highly irritable, etc. So while this is a very simple and basic way of understanding the difference between anxiety and depression, there are several pointers that one needs to remember, right? So number one is both anxiety and depression are the consequences of our thoughts and feelings. The difference is in the impact, that is, while one attacks the sensory system, the other affects the mood. Two, understanding the significance of our thoughts and feelings is of utmost importance because the signs and symptoms of anxiety and depression that I've spoken so far can also stem from organic causes, that is due to physical illness, which has everything to do with the body, its weakened condition, and nothing directly to do with the mind that holds our thoughts. Number three, both anxiety and depression can affect a person in isolation, or these can coexist. That is, an individual can suffer from both in various degrees. Number four, both these conditions, in fact, this is for all mental health conditions, need to be assessed in context to duration. That is how long the person has been suffering. Degree, that is the severity of the symptoms. Frequency, that is how often the symptoms occur or recur. And finally, its impact on a person's general functioning to warrant medical or therapeutic attention. And finally, number five, both the physiological sensations of anxiety and depression impact one's behavioral or actionable pattern. And these are observable, measurable, and eventually help us in deciding the line of treatment. Again, due to a very restricted time frame, because I've been told there would be there's already been a repertoire of questions. So I've made two very broad-based and hopefully very simple way of understanding the causes of anxiety and depression from the environmental point of view. These are again, in fact, applicable for a general mental health phenomena as well. So number one is an underexposure or overexposure of a child to the external world. Let me explain this a bit to you. Every phase of a child's development has several tasks and challenges, which when fulfilled satisfactorily, makes the individual emotionally secure, happy, and facilitate the process of moving on to the next phase of development. Any disruption in any such phases in terms of underexposure or premature or overexposure affects the progress to the next stage, and so forth. These developmental tasks include fulfilling a child's biological needs, developing sensory motor skills, forming habits, develop social skills, and acquire cognitive and intellectual abilities. A holistic and healthy progress leads to positive thoughts and feelings, and the disruption in these cause stress and anxiety. Number two, awareness, acceptance, and regulation of impulses, emotions, and feelings. As the most superior part of nature's creations in terms of brain development, a child, apart from being born with biological needs, impulses, gradually acquires from its environment speech, thoughts, and feelings. So it's the correct identification of these emotions and feelings that make a child feel understood and accepted, be self-aware, and finally emotionally secure. And it's the regulation of thoughts in a rational manner that makes a child develop higher cognitive abilities. In depression, it's the overloading of negative emotions gathered from one's experience that get turned against the self, followed by thoughts that are detrimental to one's well-being. Thus, negative emotions like guilt and anger are directed towards the self, with the thought of not adding value to life in terms of relationships and pursuits, and in extreme cases, thus wanting to end it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Ghosh, for such an informative and realistic sharing of your experiences. Truly, our children will understand when they are the difference between anxiety and depression and how hopefully to deal with it. Thank you so much, ma'am. I now invite Ms. Sasha Paul to speak to our students.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm going to introduce myself as a 25-year-old girl, just to put in perspective the fact that I'm not very far off from how old all of you are today. And it was not very long ago that I passed out of school. Today, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about my stint with depression and anxiety, and how it felt and how I dealt with it, and also the impact of social media on mental health today. I was diagnosed as I was depressed in 2016 in September, when I wasn't feeling too good. I constantly felt helpless, lost, tired, just as Ms. Ghosh has mentioned earlier. Those are some of the symptoms that show you that you're not doing mentally okay. And it came to a point where I was not able to get out of bed. I couldn't sleep, but I didn't want to do anything other than be in bed. uh, i I had very, very difficult thoughts that I had to deal with, in the sense that I didn't want to live anymore, and the thoughts were so overwhelming. I just didn't know how to handle it. And so I did go to my mother and speak to her, and I got the help that I needed. And this is how it has changed me for who I am today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how you can perceive mental health, in the sense that uh, your mind is just, this is something that I've understood over the years. Your mind is just a part of your body. And just like you treat a fever or a cough or a cold, when you have a mental illness, or you're depressed, or you are anxious, or you have anxiety, you would go and get the help that you need. There are doctors for that, there are professionals for that, and you just need to take a step in that direction. I think a lot of times, even for me, I did not want to go to a doctor because of the taboo around it, and the fact that a lot of it's how the world perceives you after that. And I was extremely scared to do so. But today I can tell you that I'm really, really happy that I got the help that I needed. I'm going to go into the aspect of social media now. So when I was in school, we had no social media. I think we had only like Facebook and Orkut, and today you have Instagram. I think we didn't have Instagram when I passed out of school in 2012, and we had just newspapers to read the news and stuff like that. So when you think about it today, I think our lives involve Instagram so much. People are constantly on Instagram. You're looking at the likes that you get on a photograph. You're looking at the follower number of followers that you have. You're looking at these what they call influencers, and you're just constantly hoping that your life will be like everyone who shares that story. But I'd like to tell you that the reality behind these photographs and the stories that people are posting are not exactly what they are showing to you. Now, everyone seems happy in their photographs. Everyone seems great. Everyone seems like they're having a great time. They're traveling. They're doing this. They're doing that. But it's not that. It's the reality is very different. In fact, I've had a time when I was out with a couple of friends and they've actually fought really badly, and we were all at this cafe. And the next day, this person posts a picture of that cafe and say, "Oh, you know what? We had such a lovely evening." But the truth behind that picture was not that, right? They had a really horrible evening. They fought, and you post something else for the world to see. So I think a lot of people today, a lot of children seek for validation from Instagram, which I want to tell you is kind of it's not important. You need to detach yourself from that and seek validation from yourself. Be happy and content with yourself. A lot of these trends, if you look at the number of followers that you have, you probably have like 550, 600 followers or even more. But look at the number of people who actually care about what you're going through, or if you're happy, or your achievements or your failures. I think if you look at the number of people, there probably, at least for me, there are probably like 6 people or 7 people who I really keep in touch with and who really, really care about what's happening in life. And I think so, and there are so many different aspects of this. Even like the news, for example, you're constantly bombarded with news all day on Instagram. You have updates all the time, and it's okay to not be part of constantly bombarded with this. If you want to take off from Instagram and if you want to not be part of that, it's okay for you to actually cut off for a bit, because I understand that there is a lot of news that mentally affects you, and it has a toll on your mental health, and it you need to take some time off sometimes, and that's okay. Another thing that I want to tell you is that in today's day and age, I think we have it a lot harder because everyone is so competitive and everyone is in a rat race. And sometimes it's okay to just take a step back, relax. It's okay to do that. You don't always have to be okay. You don't always have to be part of that rat race. If you're content with yourself and you want to step back, you don't have to be achieving what the other person is achieving. As long as you're achieving what you want and what makes you happy, I think you should be content with that and you should be happy about it. If you do feel like, I think I had this in school when I was like super scared about not passing in chemistry and math, and I was really bad at it. I think I failed till class 10. And then finally, boards I passed. And marks don't define who you are. Please understand that. Even when you're in school, it's okay to not know like where you're going to end up or what you're going to do in life. It's okay to take one step at a time, and it's okay to take that step and breathe and decide what you want to do. Marks really, really don't matter. Yes, do the best that you can. But I know for a fact that maths and science was not what I liked. And then in 11th and 12th, finally, when I could drop those subjects, I did pretty well for myself. A lot of you may want to do art, and that has nothing to do with any of the subjects that we have in school. So I think that's one thing. I think you should just take the time to figure out what you want, and not stress so much about where you're going to be or where you're going to land up or achieve as much as the next person. every person is unique and you will do exactly what you can do with your life. I'm really happy that school has chosen to do this, because I wish that when I was in school, we had something like this. Because I did approach a couple of teachers in school when I was going through a hard time, and they did help me through it. And I want to tell you that it's really important that you speak to someone if you're not feeling good. You know, it's always nice to talk to someone. It's always nice to let it out. And I understand I had very supportive parents, but I understand that there are many people in the world who don't understand this. They don't understand depression, they don't understand anxiety. And I understand that a lot of parents may not understand it. But that is why your teachers have put this together, so you can talk about it and you can approach them if at any point you feel like you're not doing okay and you need to get the help that you need. Uh, I see that it's a little difficult to understand, and you're scared to approach teachers, but you can do that. It's not, I have done it in the past, and I've gotten a lot of help in school when I needed it the most. Uh, so yeah, you should approach teachers when you need it. You should approach someone who you are confident to talk to. Address the problem. It may not always be a very, very big problem. It could be the smallest thing, but get the help that you need for it, and don't give up in that moment, because I know that I wanted to give up. And if I had given up, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you actually telling you about my experience. So it's really of utmost importance that you get the help that you need. Another thing that, and lastly, I want to actually tell you about certain images put up on Instagram, and how I think body image issues are a very, very big problem today. And I want you to understand that everyone is made differently. And yes, if you feel like, oh, I need to be the perfect weight, your metabolism is different. You are a different human being. So you may not have the body that the next person has, but you have your body and you need to be happy with what you have. They're perfect pictures, and everything that's put up on Instagram is basically perfect. But honestly, it's not like that. Everyone has their flaws, and everyone, I think, criticizes something about themselves all the time. But you need to just learn to accept the fact that this is how you look, and everyone is a beautiful person. And don't pay too much attention on, these small things like likes. They're just superficial likes that people scrolling through Instagram constantly uh, just click on. Like, it's just one click. It's not like they're telling you something or they're saying something to you. And as for the bad comments, if you have like a public profile, I think that you should completely ignore what other people say to you. In If it's not positive criticism, I think you should completely ignore it, not take that personally, because there are people who just say things to you for the sake of saying things, for the sake of bringing you down. And that can severely affect you. And if these things do affect you in any way, I think it's very necessary that you do take it up with someone and speak to someone and get the help that you need. As Miss Gigi Boy said rightly, happiness is a journey and it's not a destination. And you look for happiness within yourself, and the people closest to you will give you that happiness. And people who do not care will try to bring you down as much as they want. But you need to stand up and deal with it. And yeah, you emerge stronger. And like they say, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. And I can tell you for a fact that I strongly believe in the fact that uh, all your life experiences together have you exactly where you're meant to be at a particular time. You may not believe this right now, but when you look back, you learn to appreciate every single experience that you've ever had. Thank you.
Thank you, Sasha, for having the courage to share the difficult and challenging moments of your young life to help others in dealing with their own challenges more effectively. We are really very proud of you, Sasha. You have turned out to be such a confident young lady, sharing such words of wisdom with the younger students of your school. Thank you, Sasha. We have been fortunate this evening to have heard and learned from the insightful, realistic, and informative inputs from our panelists. We will now begin the question answer session with our principal, Mrs. A. Gomes, as the moderator of the proceedings.
Thank you, Mrs. Deer. We have overwhelmed with questions. We've got a lot of questions ranging from different aspects. So the three panelists, I think you better get ready because you've got a lot of answering to do. We'll go with the simpler questions. Question one. Mrs. Ghosh, if you could take this question. What do you do when someone makes fun of you when you are depressed? Or rather, for being depressed?
Yeah. Yeah, so has the student mentioned his or her name? It's a her, I'm guessing. Her
Ma'am,
age, I'm sorry, her age,
yeah,
sorry.
they're all in the range of classes 9 to 12. So
Okay.
maybe an 18-year-old if we look at it.
Mhm. All right, so what she is actually expressing is a feeling of being teased, and to an extent, maybe it might border on to some what we call as being bullied, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And if she's using the words that for being depressed, which means that she is inadvertently and unknowingly showing out some signs of not being well enough, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And when people are, when there is a group of students, I'm guessing, or people in general who are pointing it out to her, she is perhaps feeling less of herself, right?
Right, that's right, ma'am.
So, um, so probably what she needs to look into the larger picture is that how far these people really matter to her. The fact is that she is feeling devalued, right? She is also already overburdened with a lot of negative feelings, a lot of negative thoughts about herself. And it's like adding injury to it. But by a group of people, she needs to ask herself whether they actually matter to her scheme of things, right? And whether she can, at this point, as to how she's feeling, she can afford to really pay so much heed to those, right? Another aspect is that whether she has that element of a some sort of a drive within herself still to kind of ask those people what exactly is in their mind. What is it about her that they're not liking? Two, if she has her own set of friends, maybe one or two also would do. Whether she can, share with them and seek support, some sort of emotional support to tide it over with her, right?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that they act as kind of a buffer to how she's feeling. If I'm assuming that she's a loner, then she has to navigate some sort of a coping mechanism, either to address it head on by asking them, approaching them, or ignore them by actually, asking herself how far these people are important and
Thank
whether
you, ma'am.
they really know her as a person.
Thank you for that, ma'am. So there are two important points that Mrs. Ghosh brought out. How much do these people who make fun of you, I'm speaking to the girl, whoever you are, who's brought up this question, how much do the girls who are making fun of you actually matter to you? And the second point that ma'am has so rightfully brought up, what is your support system? Okay, if you have friends who matter to you, even if it's just one friend, as ma'am says, be there, let her be there for you. Thank you, ma'am. Mrs. Gigi Boy, we move from friends to parents, a very common question today. How do we make our parents accept the fact that mental illness exists and anxiety exists too?
Okay. Um, Mental illness exists is no doubt. What is preventing probably people from accepting mental illness are the different myths, taboos, which are associated with mental health. um, when it is happening to someone else who is outside of my family, outside of my friend circle, then I seem to be more accepting of it. But when it is coming to me or my family or my friends, I begin to think that why is it happening to us? It's not that they are not aware internally, but probably accepting it out loud is difficult for them, maybe because of the lack of awareness in with regard to mental health. So programs such as these, webinars such as these, are just enabling people to know, to understand that it is okay to ask for help, and not only okay to ask for help from people around you, but you can seek professional help as well. Because when you are moving towards professional help, it is not only about telling you what to do and what not to do. It is focusing more upon what you want to do, how you want to do it, because your set of coping mechanisms are entirely different from someone else's coping mechanisms. Because of the individualistic nature of mental illness or mental health, that is why people are, still afraid to come out, that how can we handle it? A medicine for cold is a medicine for every cold that a person has. But what a person is thinking and what a person is feeling is entirely different from one to another to the next.
Yes,
So
thank you.
this is, and you know, all emotions, anxiety, anger, sadness, all of it will be there. It is the extremes that, we need to address.
Yes, I remember when Sasha was sharing earlier, she had mentioned that she had very supportive parents, which I think is one of the biggest obstacles that a child can overcome. Would you like to share something, Sasha, about the parents, your parents?
So I think so. I'd like to say that my mother actually. So I don't think anyone who's, unless you're a professional, I don't think people who have not been through something like that completely comprehend and understand what exactly you're feeling and going through. So my parents, I know, didn't completely comprehend the extent of what I was feeling, but they knew that there was something really, really wrong with me, because people who know me as someone who's always really happy and always willing to do things and go out and give, like, offer help to whoever needs it. I'm always there for people who need me, and I was just in a place where I didn't have that in me to do it anymore. I didn't want to meet anyone. I constantly wanted to be alone. I didn't want to talk to anyone. And that's when I think they realized that this is not who she is. She hasn't been this way for the last 22 years of her life, and there is something that has drastically changed. So even though they didn't completely understand what I was going through, they knew that there was a drastic change that was not very characteristic of me in the first place. And so they did get the help for me that I needed. And I think they understood that it was important that this is addressed now and not kept for later, because of how drastic the change was in my behavior. So I think it's really important. You can see it when someone may seem extremely happy, but if you're at home, you can see the change that they display at home, as compared to outside. So I think that was very important. And I think without support from my parents, I don't think I would have gotten through what I went through. So
So family support is important, as you say, and basically identifying the problem and then moving forward. The next step is getting help for the person. Thank you, Sasha. Mrs. Ghosh, how can one differentiate between a normal amount of anxiousness and a more serious condition? Very good question, ma'am. I think even we adults would like an answer to this.
So this is something I think I've already spoken about when I spoke about uh, the symptoms. Let me just go through it once again. The basic thing of understanding the difference is to understand about the duration. As I mentioned, that we all feel anxious some of the time. That's part and parcel of our life. Because if we were not feeling moderately or optimally tense, we would all be sleeping on our desk, right? So there would be a modicum of anxiety in all of us. It's a question of degree, it's a question of duration. As I mentioned earlier, that we all feel it, but there are some who feel it most of the time. So it's the duration of what we sense or what we feel inside. It's the severity of it. It's a frequency of the symptoms, right? What I'm physiologically experiencing, if it's anxiety, if it's mood, then what are the constant frequency of those mood swings, as we say, that I'm experiencing.
Okay,
And
thank you, ma'am.
finally, and
Yes, ma'am.
finally, and finally, how these all impact our general functioning. So even if, let's say, for an example, an individual go through these kind of symptoms on a day-to-day basis in moderate degrees, but overall the general functioning is not being affected, right? Then that person is reasonably okay. The moment, because of all these factors, our general functioning gets affected, our work gets affected, our relationship, our personal life gets affected, is where we generally put up the red flag.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. So it is the severity of the situation that we really need to look out for.
Duration also,
And
yeah.
the duration. Yes, thank you. Um, mm, Mrs. Gigi Boy, how can we help a person in depression and who is getting general and often getting suicidal thoughts? I repeat that. How can we help a person who is in depression and getting general suicidal thoughts?
One very important indication that you need professional help is dealing with suicidal thoughts. That is your first indicator. If you have ignored all which has happened before, once you get suicidal thoughts, you need to address the situation as soon as possible. That is of utmost importance. How to deal with the suicidal thoughts? Um, Again, we need to understand the situation that we are in, the situation that is causing different types of emotions. The emotion is coming first. Then the thought is coming regarding the emotion, and it is telling us a lot of negative things about ourselves, and we are not stopping at one negative thought. It is just a spiral, and it is spiraling down to the worst possible negative thought, and we are basically labeling ourselves that this is whom we are. We need to stop this spiraling of the thought, and therefore we need to actually constructively look for what is the evidence for the thought that I am having. What is the evidence for the thought? What is the evidence against the thought? And then, on a more rational, practical basis, we need to come to a new thought which is not demeaning ourselves.
Ma'am, would you say that self-criticism disempowers energy from within a child?
Um, Again, criticism is important, self criticism is also important, but how much? It is all a matter of degree. How much? How much is enough? How much is not enough? Many a times we fail to understand our self concept also develops from the people around us. So people around us are also very, they may have their own ways. Someone may think that if I scold and reprimand the child, that is the way, the child is going to pull up their socks and be okay with it. But it may not be for this particular child. So
So each individual is different, and we need to work with each individual in a different manner. Is that what you're saying, ma'am?
Yes, tailor made for everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Mrs. Ghosh, how do you talk or help a friend who is on drugs and then cuts herself?
That's under the influence of drugs, or that's an okay,
I
you
would
would ask me.
imagine either
Okay,
both or maybe two separate
both
in,
maybe.
yeah.
So self-harming can be due to a couple of reasons. One could be substance induced, depends on the kind of drugs that the person is consuming, and it can be completely due to psychological reasons, where a person feels a sense of, unfortunately, a relief and even a sense of pleasure by turning the aggression towards the self, right? It is with the thought that because nobody understands or can hold that person's aggression, that person starts feeling that only the body can, because it's so much of energy. Aggression is so much of energy. Because it cannot be expressed outside, it is turned inside. So there are people who actually cut themselves to derive that sense of pleasure and a sense of relief. It's again a strong sense of relief,
Yes, ma'am.
however unhealthy it is, and it is unhealthy. So, A is that coming back to your question, is if a person is taking drugs and a person level of motivation needs to be assessed first, right? So if a person is to a very, even to a little bit, to a little extent, motivated to kind of get rid of it, then it becomes easier for that, for the people around him or her to seek profession, to take him or her to professional help. But if a person who's on drugs is not motivated enough, then it becomes a very difficult journey for the peers, because they, at the end of the day, are also of the same age group. All right. So they can,
Yes.
at best, create a support system again, right? And if it's a question of self harm, because those are the areas where we take certain decisions, that when you're harming others and when you're harming self, then there are certain things one need to perhaps report to the next level, that is either to some teachers if it's within the premises of an institution, or take it up to the parents. Yeah, if depending on the degree of injury and the extent of harm that a person wants to do, it again depends on that also. Or if there is, again, what I mentioned, what I just now said, if there is a good support system to create that level of emotional safety net, and talk it out with the person as to what exactly is bothering her and how they can perhaps help her, because there are a lot of bottled up emotions, there are bottled up feelings inside these kind of people, which somehow they don't feel able to express themselves.
Yes, ma'am. So you're saying firstly that the friend circle is important. If she has a good support system, she can reach out to this girl and then move to higher authorities who could be teachers in the school or could even be the parents of this child if they are very good family friends. Thank
Again,
you for
depending
that,
on
ma'am.
how far that person is actually injuring the self,
That's
depending on
that's
that.
right. Sasha, this question is for you. I am getting depressed day by day. Why? The reason is there's a group turning against me and it stays on my mind all the time. What will happen when I return to school, when I cannot block them like I have done now on social media?
To whoever you are, I know exactly how you feel because where I was in class 8 when something similar happened to me, and it was extremely difficult for me. And thankfully, I didn't have a phone at that point. So after school, I just shut it out completely and had nothing to do with it. But when you're dealing with that on a constant basis, I want you to know that when you do go back to school, you have an entire class of people. Okay. And if there is one group who's doing that, not every individual in that class is going to be like that. So find a friend in someone else. You don't have to go actively and speak to them. And if they do give you a hard time, just say I do not want to have any contact with you, and you are bringing my energies down, you are taking a toll on me, and I'd like you to just stay away from me. And I don't have anything to do with you, you don't have anything to do with me. I understand that it's very difficult if you've been friends in the past and you want them back in your life. But if you have not done anything wrong, then don't blame yourself for it. If you have done something wrong, you realize it, apologize for it. If they accept it, forgive you, then it's worth it. Otherwise, just let it go. Look for a friend in someone else. There are so many people in school, there are so many students in school. There will be someone to accept you for who you are. So I had someone, and I think I am still friends with her after all these years, and we're the best of friends. So look for that. Look for that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Sasha, school friends go a long way, and we may develop more friendships as we go down the road, but I think your school friends are most important. Would you also agree to bullying on social media? There's a question here. How do you deal with bullying on social media? Could you answer that question as well, please?
So see, on like I've said before, social, I don't know who exactly is bullying you on social media, but so I'm going to give you a very general opinion. So if it's a friend, then you need to cut that person out of your life, because she or he is not doing you any good and is just bringing you down. She is not uplifting your spirit in any way. She is not constructively helping you grow in any way. So I don't think that you need to categorically just block that thought. Secondly, if you are on social media and it is someone who is you don't know, and because your profile is public and people can get in touch with you more easily, if it's someone you do not know, just simply block that person. Do not let someone you don't know affect you in any way. I can tell you for a fact that it is, as long as the people who matter to you the most are accepting of you and love you and help you grow in ways that you want to grow, who are accepting of your achievements in life, who, failures in life, everything. I think those are the people who are worth giving your time and energy to. And if they are bringing you down in any way, just it's not worth it. They're not going to be there in your life 10 years from now. You have 50 friends today, you probably will have two friends at like 26 or 27. So yeah, don't waste your energy on someone who is not worth it. That's all I can say.
Thank you. From a younger perspective, I think children, you can relate easier to Sasha with that answer. Thank you. Mrs. Gigi Boy, this is a very important question which many of our children face, and I'm glad that this girl has brought it up. All students nowadays are told to get jobs like engineering or doctors, and many of their personal dreams are crushed when they want to be something else. Can you please speak about this?
This would probably go more to the parents who are probably listening in with their children, where we need to accept whom our child is and probably not live our dreams through our children. The market for engineers and doctors are saturated. We need more artists, we need more athletes, we need more people who are going to be designing our homes or our clothes. There are so many vocations that we have, even I may not have heard of, but they are there. And it is very important for us to just be that support behind them, that I accept you no matter what. They will definitely be able to do something with their lives. That is what I want to stress upon. That,
Ma'am, may I just ask you one thing, just to add to what you're saying? Could you reach out to this child? Supposing her parents are adamant and they say, no, you have to be a doctor, but maybe she wants to be a historian or she wants to do architecture. What should she do at this point of time? Because she needs to work with her parents too.
so trying to sit the parents down and speak with the parents initially, that first she should get herself ready as to this is my plan. When a plan is put forward and it is logical, it is more acceptable. So maybe she can do her own research and, find out that what is required, what are the prospects of doing something like this. If the parents still do not understand, maybe she can take help from the school counselor. Because if a person who knows about this is speaking with the parents, maybe the parents would understand logic and reason and would, try to help their child to the best of their abilities. So these
Okay.
are two steps which she can probably
Yes,
take.
thank you, ma'am. And what I want to add here is most of our colleges today, we have an integrated course. So, I mean, when we were younger, we just had humanities, commerce, and science. Today, many science courses even offer architecture, even offer art as a subject. So, thank you. I also want to say, children, if you play a lot of games, you will be a little more open to suggestions. And at the end of the day, children, you have to listen to your parents. I know that's a difficult and it's a choice you have to make, as Mrs. Gigi Boy just said, but you will need to listen to what your parents say. Mrs. Ghosh, question for you. Does meditation really help if you are constantly surrounded by others who are socially inactive and you prefer isolation? Will meditation help?
I didn't get that middle part. When you're surrounded by social inaction, what was that?
I'll read that again, ma'am. Does meditation really help if you are constantly surrounded by others who are socially inactive and prefer isolation?
I'm trying to understand the meaning of surrounded by people who are socially inactive. What exactly does it mean to this person?
She
A
probably
medit
means, man, let's look at it this way, that possibly we look at it in two ways. Maybe she is socially inactive and prefers isolation. So then will
that I've got
meditation
it.
help?
Yeah, that
Or
is
maybe
okay.
yeah, or maybe, ma'am, as this question suggests, that she's surrounded by people who are socially inactive.
Anyway, let's get into the general question of meditation. Meditation definitely helps. Any kind of, mindfulness, collecting your thoughts, focusing into a single point, obviously is beneficial. That's a general thing. But there are mental states, there are people who feel so restless inside. There are mental states which are so agitated that at that point, unless that subsides to a certain degree, no amount of meditation will help, because that person would not be able to focus a thought for with a long period of time. That's one. Second is being, again, I'm not getting that being surrounded, so I'm ignoring that
Okay,
bit.
we'll leave that part out.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
ma'am.
yeah, yeah. So that's essentially the thing. If a person wants to meditate, if a person can meditate, definitely one can do it. But there are people who, due to their level of heightened level of tensions and agitations, they, even if they desire it, they cannot. For them, some other methods of, help, like a little bit
So
of
maybe
medicines and
for them, guided meditation would be a little more
guided
helpful.
medication. Even with guided medication, for people who are really restless, it really doesn't help. So if it reaches to, again, a case of a symptom where a person general functioning comes down, then a little bit of medication perhaps is needed with therapy, and then a person can avail these kind of additional, tools.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mrs. Gigi Boy, it's quite an interesting question. I think if we have teachers and principals on our group, they would be interested to hear your answer, ma'am. Schools can play a very important role helping trans and gay children coming out in society. What can schools do to facilitate this?
Okay. So we need to start again with awareness programs, sensitization that these are not disorders. This is a choice. So, sensitization towards gender is something that is very important. And school would play a very important role in organizing sensitization programs for not only the children but also parents, because many a times there are parents coming into clinic and telling us that, you know, um, she is lesbian and please make her okay. So there, and also I want to say something, that there is no therapy that can change the orientation of the person. And if someone is claiming to change the orientation of that person, then that person is doing something which is ethically incorrect. So sensitization is very important at this level.
Ma'am, also acceptance of the person, and for us to be a little more alert and aware of these situations.
Yes.
Can I
And
add
then,
on to this a bit?
Support.
yes,
Support.
surely, ma'am, surely.
Yeah, because we are actually, we are targeting the age group that ma'am had mentioned, 9. So that's part of the adolescence stage of life.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, where one is still exploring one's sexuality as part of the many identities, right? So there are a lot of confusions also regarding the sexuality of a person. The stage that the technological stage that we live in now, that there is a constant bombardment of information that people have from a very early age. So there are a lot of, confusions between what we think could be a role model to labeling it as being same-sex feeling. So instead of what Mrs. Jijiboy rightly had pointed out, awareness, sensitization is definitely part of the school curriculum. But if there is a scope of speaking with a person, to be, let's not label oneself so early in one's own life, because the whole identity is shaping. Be it sexual, be it self, the identity is still forming. So we often get, people getting confused that if a person holds somebody, there's like somebody who's really admiring a senior student, and there are like whispers of teasing, she's a lesbian, right? And then it gets into an auto suggestion, perhaps I am. So one needs to be also very careful about how labels may be prematurely given to a person who's yet to explore herself or himself in this phase of life. So that
Yes,
is
thank
something
you.
one needs to be careful. Yeah.
That's another aspect of the question.
Mhm.
Thank you, ma'am, for bringing that up. Sometimes we label children, and then they, in aping other friends also, they could
Absolutely.
become and follow that particular role.
Mhm.
But also when it actually exists, I think acceptance is one of the major ways that we can really overcome this. Thank you. Sasha, we have just one or two more questions because we are running across time. To what extent do simple solutions like binge eating and taking a break or time off help depression? There are parts here: binge eating or taking a break.
Um, I did. I actually didn't. I think it depends on how you're coping with it. So if you are binge eat, but I don't know if that's a healthy approach to it. I didn't eat at all. I know that I lost a considerable amount of weight when I was depressed because I didn't feel like eating at all. I think I ate one apple.
So that would be the extreme, the other extreme of depression.
But yes, it is a symptom, but I don't think it is a healthy way to deal with it. And if you are doing such a thing, I think it's extremely important that you realize that you need to talk to someone to figure out another coping mechanism other than doing this. So get the help from someone who will be able to divert your attention from doing this. So when you plan, like, so I can think of it like this: if you want to binge eat at a particular time in the day, instead of doing that, distract yourself and go for a run. Physical activities for me. So from previous question, I think a child asked about meditation. For me, I'm a very hyper person. Meditation does not work at all. My mind is constantly, like, at least when I was depressed, I was constantly thinking. I couldn't shut it off, which is why I couldn't sleep either. And I don't even know what I was thinking of at that point, but it was just on a constant like overdrive basically. And so to distract myself, I'd go for a long walk, kind of like drain my energy completely, try to figure out, meet friends if I felt like it, like be alone, go for a walk, drain your energy. So that's good. So you need to figure out another coping mechanism for sure. Secondly, I think about taking a break. Yes, it really, really does help. Take a break from social media, take a break from your friends if you need. Be with people who make you happy. If you want
What
to,
about taking a break from studies? Sorry, I'm barging in, but what about a gap year?
I can tell you that I don't know about like how schools would take it, but if you really really are in a situation where you can't study at all, I took a semester off in college, and I didn't go to class, and I had very low attendance, and they actually said that you can't give the exam even though I had medical documents to prove the same. So then it went up to the vice principal, and she was very accommodating, and she said, if you're in the mind space to actually give the papers, take the papers, take it. But if you want to drop a semester and give it in the next semester, you can do that. So if you're in a really bad state of mind and you really think that you can't do it, maybe you can approach the person concerned and have a conversation about it, and tell them that. And it is not the end of everything. It will probably be 1 year, but you also need to look at the implications of this. Now, are you comfortable with taking that year off, or do you want to graduate with your friends and your class? Because those things will also affect you later in life, where, oh, you know what, my friends are out of school and they've graduated. So if you can really think about it and figure it out, and if you want to take a couple of days off from school, yes, given a leave application, and take maybe like 3-4 days off for yourself to calm yourself down. And otherwise you can always have the other options that I've spoken about. But yes, you can take a
And I
break.
think, I think during this COVID-19 period, many of our class 12s who have completed their exams now, they are in a situation where colleges abroad are not giving admission. They are telling them move to the next semester. So they are in a catch-22 situation, really. I know one of my teachers was very clear, and she said, just take a gap year. And not many are able to adhere to that, but it is a good way of, you want to
I
say something?
tell you something. So for me also, like I think I had a gap year after school. I went and did literature in St. Xavier's, Calcutta for a year. And I didn't really enjoy classes, but I had a really good time because I went and debated. I did that instead. So even if you take a gap year, there is a human being's I think human beings' hobbies and talents are not just restricted to one thing, that is studies and school and a particular, getting somewhere. There are so many other talents that you have. There are so many other things that you may like doing. So even if it's a gap year, it's not like anything else is happening. It's not like you're getting into college, like everyone is sitting at home. So if you really like to put your energy into something else, do that. It's okay. Like it's fine. You don't have to get into college this year. And
Yeah.
honestly, 1 year doesn't really make a difference. I can tell you that. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Sasha. We'll just go with two more questions. Mrs. Gigi Boy, um, how can one deal with an extremely negative parent, possibly my mean mother? Sorry, I need to read that on media, but that's the question. How can one deal with an extremely negative parent, possibly my mean mother?
Okay. This is definitely a stressful situation for the child. And what I can tell you is you need to understand for yourself the things that you have in control and the things that are beyond your control. How your mother will respond to you is beyond your control. Now, when something is beyond my control, I will use that kind of coping mechanism that is going to help me calm my emotions. If it is in my control, I can use problem-focused coping, where I am breaking it down into steps and figuring out what needs to be done afterward. But if the person who is the closest to me is not seeing reason, then I need to understand how to manage my emotions around the situation. Also, to maybe reflect upon my understanding of my acceptance and expectation. The more I am expecting, the more I am experiencing the stress, because I am not being able to do anything in the situation. I may have tried lots of ways, I'm sure you have tried lots of ways to find reason within yourself as to why it is happening, but you may have not found your answer, and maybe that's why the question. But try to reflect on what is in my control, what is not in my control, how can I lower my expectation, how do I increase my acceptance, how do I give myself positive self instructions in order to be able to deal with this situation.
Can I please add on to this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Uh, when the home environment is very unconducive, it becomes, especially when the person has spoken about the mother being very negative, it becomes, and especially if it's coming from a growing child, right, not yet an adult, it becomes very imperative for that person to form, seek out, reach out, and form substitutes in the form of relationships, in the form of creative or healthier pursuits, so that validation, affirmation comes also from various other channels, not only from the home. Because we, as human beings, we form our self image, we form our self concept
Yes, ma'am.
through the eyes of our guardians, primarily through the eyes of our parents. So, in the case that there is such negativity in the house, it becomes very essential for the person to reach out and form better, robust relationships where they get that essential emotional support, emotional sense of validation from them, and form pursuits.
Ma'am, if I may add to this, I think if we open the lines of communication between mother and daughter, it would be helpful, and actually talk about what is the problem. And then forgiveness plays a very important role. There may be something troubling either the mother or the child, son, daughter, and if you learn to forgive on both ends, I think that could be the first step. We may not even need external help then. That's the way I look at it. But definitely, if we need help, we will go for it. I
Can I
go
just
with the
add
last
something?
question to Mrs. Gigi Boy. Sorry. Yes, Sasha.
So I'm not I wanted to say that I'm not undermining your feelings in any way, but I just want to tell you that a lot of children, when you're growing up, right, between 9 to 12, I think a lot of us hate our parents and just want out. We're just like, I just want to grow up really fast. But when you look back, it may not be the case in it may be more severe. But in general, a lot of us do not like grown-ups when you're growing up, because you want to do your own thing and you feel like they're restricting you or saying things because they want to make you feel bad. But always remember, there is a reason in most cases as to why they're saying it, and they're looking out for you. And if you can put yourself in their shoes and think about why they're saying that to you, they're more often than not, they're looking out for your safety and not because of anything else. When it is severe and you think that they're putting you down, then you need to reach out for help for sure.
Thank you, Sasha. Again, I say, coming from you, because of your age, the girls will be very happy to hear that. That when mothers are always nagging and always being mean, I think they're really looking out for their daughters. So I'm sure my children are smiling as well. But that is true. Those of us who have teenage children and those who have gone above the teenage years too, I think communication is important, because if you don't communicate, a lot gets swept under the carpet. And that's where, going with the last question to Mrs. Gigi Boy, there are some people who suffer from mental illness, but they are unable to get help. Is there a way that they can cope with it themselves?
Again, it depends on the intensity, the severity, for how long. Try looking around. There may be one person in your environment who would listen to you, one teacher in your entire school who would listen to you. Just look out a little bit, I would say. You would find someone. And if you feel that you are still unable to approach, you can call helplines. There are helplines available on the internet, which is just a tap away. Call and speak to someone who you don't know, but you can say what you want and try to deal with what you are feeling. So there is someone. We need to take that first step of reaching out.
Thank you, ma'am. I think that's a very good way of answering that question. Thank you so much. We've had a huge, long discussion today, and we've covered so many aspects. I'm very happy to hear that from different age levels, we've been able to work on these questions from technical, from psychological ways. We have looked at different answers. As I say, there is no perfect solution, but I think we've taken this first step in the lives of our children so that we can make a difference. My senior coordinator, Mrs. Mogrelia, to give us the vote of thanks for this evening.
Very good evening to my Loreto House family. It's been a wonderful evening. My Mind Matters has been a Loreto House initiative to underscore the importance of mental health as a core value of education within the Loreto institution. It recognizes the fact that when the mind is not at peace, nothing seems possible. This is of particular relevance in today's connected yet complex global village. My generation and those of your parents grew up at a time when lives were much simpler. College admissions were much easier, and there was nothing more to connect us than the normal general telephone, which wasn't working half of the time. In the absence of social media and selfie sticks, there was little to obsess about and far less for parents to fret about. However, we do understand that children born in a different century face far more challenges at a younger age than that can actually mentally drain them. Yet, the more you hold on to these fears and anxieties, the larger than life they become. You've had a panel of experts and you've had an ex-student so eloquently speak about your options, and I do hope that you will follow them. We want you to know that your principal and all your teachers are always there for you. Never hesitate to approach any one of us at any given time, especially now when you have us all on WhatsApp. It's perhaps even easier to reach out in a private manner. I'm sure today's wonderfully enlightening session will leave you with more faith in yourselves and hope for your life ahead. On behalf of the principal, the staff and students of Loreto House, I extend our deepest gratitude and sincere thanks to our three fantastic panelists who have really outdone themselves and have given us all so much to think and ponder about once we end this session. It's just not been enlightening for the students, but I think each of us has really got so much learning that we have done today. To Dr. Dinaz Jijiboy and Ms. Bornali Ghosh, thank you so much for taking time out of your hectic schedule to be a part of this project by sharing your experiences and your expertise. It was a privilege to have you here with us.
Thank you.
A special thank you to our ex-student Sasha for your courage and confidence in sharing your struggles in life. I'm sure you've bolstered many of our students with your confidence. And we are really proud of what you have become today. And very proud to call you a Loreto House student, truly.
Thank you so much, Miss.
Today's program on such a large digital platform would just not have been possible without the expertise of Mr. Ratan Postwala. Thank you so much, Ratan, for all your time in helping to make this happen without any technical glitches. Thank you so much for putting Loreto House on YouTube finally. It's not taboo anymore. I would like in this virtual world to present all four of you with a bouquet of flowers as a token of our love and appreciation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To our Loreto House family of teachers, a special thank you on behalf of the principal for being a part of our maiden webinar. And to all our students out there, thank you for supporting our initiative with your presence today. We do hope that you found it enlightening. Last but not the least, I would like to thank our principal, Mrs. Aruna Gomes, in a very special way for her constant encouragement and support for every new venture of the school and her able guidance in ensuring its successful completion with the cooperation of every member of the staff. Thank you, ma'am, for helping to keep the Loreto House banner floating gaily high. We end today's session with a message of hope and love for each one of you.
Day is ours, let's live it. And love is strong, let's give it. A song can help, let's sing it. And peace is dear, let's bring it. The past is gone, don't rue it. Our work is here, let's do it. The world is wrong, let's right it. The battle is hard, let's fight it. The road is rough, let's clear it. The future fast, don't fear it. Is faith asleep? Let's wake it. Because today is ours. Let's take it.
By the fast-flowing river, this warm, balmy night, I watch candles turn shadows into a glowing soft light. With the peace of the grotto and the setting dew, I stand in the silence, I light a candle for you. I light a candle for you that will burn oh so bright, to join hundreds of candles burning soft in the night. If heaven meets earth, then here is where they do. In Lourdes at the grotto, I light a candle for you. As your candle burns brighter, wax melting like tears, symbolizing prayers, hopes, worries and fears. As the pain of all suffering fades into the hue, I think of you, pray for you, I light light a candle for you.
As we have heard this beautiful hymn, children, we have lit the first candle for you. Take it forward. You are not alone. Your candle will burn brighter as you step forward with confidence, security, love, prayer, and most importantly, knowing that we are always here for you. God bless.